Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek Podcast, where we are continuing the conversation from this past week's sermon. I'm Rob. I'm the youth minister here at Catalyst. This is John Kelly, our discipleship minister. And Dave, this last week, main thing was this: just be kind.
It doesn't get much more simple than that.
It doesn't get more simple than that. John, the original main thing was not just be kind.
No, it wasn't. It was like, just be kind, something, and then Dan is the worst.
Dan is the worst, yeah.
Dan is the worst.
And you said on stage that the reason, I loved how you said that the reason he had put that in there is because he really wanted us to notice this week's main thing, and just because how important it is in our society.
And it's the one thing everybody fails at.
Yeah, I know.
And it's amazing how many people just aren't kind anymore.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he did that just literally to sneak one in and see if anyone would notice, because he really wanted us to focus on this one. As a matter of fact, he was preparing for this one even more so than a normal sermon.
Yeah.
He got out a big poster board to put "Just Be Kind" on it, stood out on the sidewalk and just held it up for the whole world to see.
Yeah, I know.
And it was really cool. He a lot of good reactions to it that we caught on video, and then a lot of bad reactions that we unfortunately didn't catch on video, which would have been nice if I actually had those things.
Yeah. This was a really cool one. I loved all the points that he had. And if it's okay with you, let's just dive right into it and see how long it goes. Last week's, it was just so simple. We didn't have to go very long.
Yeah, we didn't have to go long at all.
So this week might, who knows? We'll see what happens. And I love the just be kind. It's so simple. It's so easy. And yet society, for some reason, well, I know the reason, has stopped. And I think personally, and I want to hear your take also, the reason that people aren't kind anymore is because kindness doesn't return anything. The reason people are not kind is because you don't get anything in return for it. And I think the only reason people do stuff nowadays is because, well, I want something out of it. Like, if I'm going to give you something, I hope there's a return at some point. What do you think? Why do you don't think people...
I think it's part of it. I do think it's part of it. I also think it's just the fact we're self-centered.
Yeah?
I think it's just the fact that, why would I want to be kind to you, when it's similar to what you said, like, it's not going to get me anything, but at the same time, what have you done for me?
Yeah, or that. What
have you done for? Why do I have to be nice to everybody else when not everybody's nice to me?
Yeah.
It's not this idea that we're kind because Christ was kind. We're kind because we're commanded to be kind. It's not that mindset. It's a completely different thing.
Yep.
And it's amazing just how, Dave was saying all he's doing is holding up a sign that says "Just be kind."
Yep.
It wasn't saying anything negative. It wasn't anything finger pointing. It wasn't like it was an anti this or anti that kind of thing. But it was, he had people flipping him off.
Yep.
There were people that gave him the bird for saying "Just be kind."
Yep.
Because the idea of being kind brought people to a point of anger.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind.
I know. He referenced the fact that whenever your hands are really cold and you put your hands into really hot water. So if you're on like a walk on a really cold day, your hands get to the point where it's uncomfortably cold, and then you put them in really hot water, it hurts.
It feels terrible.
And he talks about, like, if nobody's ever been kind to somebody, if they haven't received kindness from somebody else from a long time, and whenever they receive it, they don't know how to take it, and their body reacts negatively to it. And that's why he thinks, that's his theory on why people flipped him off, or maybe they're just trolls.
There's always that, and there's just mean people in the world.
There's just mean people.
I mean, come on, there really are just some mean people in the world.
Yeah.
I love his take because he pulled all this from the book of Acts, chapter 3, where Peter and John were going up to pray at the temple, and there was somebody that needed to be healed. And Dave's very first thing about kindness was, don't just see the miracle. Dave talked about a story of a girl who came in to the church just this past week. We were sitting there when it happened.
Yep.
She came in, she said, "Yeah, I'm staying at the homeless shelter, and they told me to come ask you guys if you could help me get money to get an ID." Which, first off, why would a homeless shelter tell someone to go beg for money?
Yeah,
that just didn't jive immediately with me. And so Dave had her re-say what she was saying, and he said the same thing again. And I could tell Dave was really, really, really thinking this through.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, it's $12. What's it going to hurt,
Yep.
you know? And so what Dave did instead was he said, give me till tomorrow morning. Let me call Johnny at the homeless shelter, and I want to make sure that you're actually there.
Yep.
He asked her what her name was, what her request was. She gave that to him. The next day he called and found out she was never in the homeless shelter. Chances are it was somebody looking for drug money.
Yeah.
And if you just blindly give, you're not being kind. What you're actually doing is you're enabling, and that was another point of Dave's. You're enabling them to continue on in something they're doing, which brought on a wave of emotions, because I have a lot of friends over the years who've dealt with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, that addiction was just made more possible by their parents. Because the parents thought that what they were doing was loving, they thought what they were doing was kind, but instead it was furthering their addiction and furthering what they were doing, and it was the opposite of kind. And Peter and John understood that. They didn't go up and just give the guy what he was asking for.
No.
They said, we've got something better that we can give you. And I think that's where I like Dave's take. That's the twist that he took. That's where I think he caught me, and I was immediately at that point, I was zeroed in on everything he was saying, because it was just this idea that kindness isn't always being nice.
Yep.
Sometimes kindness can look very mean, but it's the exact right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting, just how he ran with that.
Yeah, I really love that take on and why Jesus. He always told them to go, don't say anything. And but I love the second one was my favorite. The second point, it says that they noticed. Mm-hmm. They walk by people all the time. You walk by people all the time, and this person wanted something, and they healed him. And it just took them to notice that person, to give this person something that would benefit them in the long run. And time after time, and I'm terrible at it. I will be the first one. And Dave mentioned on stage that he's terrible at it, and I became really hard. My heart became hardened towards it when I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee for 5 years. And there's homeless people everywhere. They had a homeless program that went for a long time, and then and homeless people all over that part of the United States would come to Knoxville because they had this homeless program that was fantastic. It lost all funding. Now there's just a bunch of homeless people without a program to go to in Knoxville. And there's just begging and begging and begging, and it got to the point where I felt bad lying to people that I didn't have money, because I always had cash in my wallet, and I would tell them I didn't have cash.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I stopped carrying cash, so I wasn't lying to them where I said I didn't have any cash. And now as I walk by, there's so many people that need healing, and just even ask, man, how's your day doing?
Right.
Can I help you with anything? Just noticing them will make a huge impact in their life and might move them in one direction or the other. Just get them to move and not be stuck in this situation that they're in. And that's why I loved it so much.
Well, I like that point too, just because I got a really cool opportunity last night to go to the Stephen Curtis Chapman concert. He was doing a solo tour, and one of the things that he did is he broke in the middle, and he talked about this program that he does called Share Hope. And Share Hope is a program that raises funds to give scholarships to families who are wanting to adopt overseas. Anybody knows about adopting overseas, it can cost anywhere between $10,000 and $40,000 to adopt a child from overseas. And so he was talking about all this. The organization's called Share Hope. I believe it's sharehope.org if you want to look it up online. It's a fantastic organization. But he was telling us one story of this little girl he met. And she was literally laying in a field, and a man walked by, and he heard a rustling in the grass, and he turned down, and there was this girl. And this little girl, then he grabbed her, got her into the system. She was able to be fostered, and then eventually the Chapman family adopted her. If the farmer hadn't noticed, then the ultimate kindness could have never happened.
Yeah.
And it's so important that we're aware.
Yeah.
That we don't walk around with blinders on, that we're so focused on what we're doing that we don't recognize the things that are going on around us. And I think, especially today, that happens more so than any time.
Oh, yeah.
Because today, everybody's so career-driven. Everybody's so work-driven. Everybody, they're just on a mission. Everything's a mission nowadays. And everybody wants to get their thing done. And what happens is you're so focused on that. And that's actually something that a lot of people admire nowadays, people that are hyper-focused.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that hyper-focus can cause us to miss a lot of things along the way.
Yeah.
You know, shocker, I'm going to talk about hiking. When I like to go hiking, I have to make sure I'm not just focused on my trail and where I'm going, but that I look around at what's going on around me, because that's where the beauty is.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty's not this dirt that I'm walking on.
Yeah.
It's the views of the valleys and the beautiful trees and flowers and wildlife and sunsets and sunrises, and those are the things that make it so beautiful. But you don't notice those things.
Yep.
If you're hyper focused, and it's so foreign for a lot of people.
Yeah.
To do that.
I love that. I love the vision of hiking and
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And the problem with a lot of people is everybody has stuff.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has crap going on in their life. And the most of the time when you are not noticing people is because something's going on in your life, and you take attention away from other things, and you focus in on this thing to either fix it, or it's just you just have to, in your mind, put attention to this thing in your life. But after a while, it becomes an excuse. Like, well, I've been busy. You know,
Yeah.
this has been going on in my life, therefore I haven't taken 2 seconds to ask you how you're doing. That's how relationships become one way. The kindness in relationships goes away. There's just always that one person asking, how you doing, how you doing, how you doing? And the other person responds, but never returns the favor of saying, well, you know, how are you doing? You asked how I'm doing, now how are you doing? And gives the other person a chance to grow that relationship and maybe just feel that little bit of love. And it all starts because, like you said, the mission. Now, the mission can be positive, like career, or it can be negative.
Yeah. Well, where's the best place to practice kindness? It's in the home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, do you come home and notice when your wife has had a rough day?
Yep.
And how do you respond to that?
Yep.
For me, when I get home, my child is screaming at the top of their lungs. Are they screaming because they're being a pain in the backside, or are they upset because something's genuinely wrong?
Yep.
You have to be able to notice these things, and you have to be able to see those. It's seeing past the upfront and getting to the root of what the real problem is, which is why it's so important in kindness to do that, because if you can't see to the root of the problem, which obviously Peter and John did, you don't see the real actual problem that you need to fix.
Yeah.
And they saw that it was more about sin, and it was more about the life of this man than it was his ailment that he was dealing with at the time. Which, you know, obviously takes that fourth point of they provided what he needed, what he actually needed.
Mm-hmm.
They saw what his problem was, and they said, silver and gold, we don't have that.
Yep.
But in the name of Jesus Christ, we have something better for you. So in the name of Jesus, you can rise up and walk. And they had to get the name of Jesus in there.
Yep.
You know, Dave, we made a comment. Actually, I did a few weeks ago about the statement of preach on all occasions and sometimes use words.
Yep.
You know, that whole thing. And Dave kind of spoke against that yesterday, which was really interesting.
Yep.
What was your take on that when he did that?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And I think he was thinking, I don't know if, I can't remember. You said something
Yeah,
about
I said
it?
something about it a few weeks ago on
And
our podcast.
I can't remember what we were talking about exactly. But I do understand that side of it, because a lot of people will make an excuse on why you shouldn't share the gospel.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm a good person, like he said. And that's so true. There's an excuse. The gospel is the greatest kindness that you can give to somebody.
Absolutely.
Or just, you know, sharing Jesus with somebody, inviting them to receive that love, that ultimate love, is the greatest thing that you can do for anyone. And you can't invite with body language. You can't invite without physically assaulting somebody of and then it becomes force, where you grab them, and bring them to church with you, or bring them to your house. Like, if you don't use words, then it becomes awkward.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the take that I think happens, unfortunately, with that is, especially like in the workplace or with family, is, well, if they just see how good I'm living, they'll want to find out why I'm living that way.
Yeah.
And there is some truth to that. That does happen. I think the heart of that was more, don't just talk, live it.
Yes.
That's the heart of the statement.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it gets taken the wrong way, and that's where Dave was really jumping on it. Was saying these people that say, "Well, I don't need to talk about Jesus."
Yeah, that's an excuse.
Because I'm living it.
Yeah.
Well, if you're living it, then you're talking about him, because that's part of living it.
Yeah.
And that's why Peter and John were able to provide for this man, because they weren't just living it; they were truly living it because they were proclaiming him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a part of the Christian faith that a lot of times we kind of push off to the side. Like it says, the last point of this thing was it gave them a platform to proclaim the gospel.
Yeah.
Because of their kindness, it opened a door so that they could verbally share Christ.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I've found in my lifetime, I'm much more effective in sharing the gospel when I have a good rapport with people, as opposed to leading with, "Hey, listen to me, I can change your life."
Yeah.
I've learned that any kind of kindness or goodness that you show to somebody, it's amazing how open those doors get right away. It's why mission work, the missionaries who are successful, they go into communities and they serve the community, and through serving the community, it opens a door to share the gospel. Mm-hmm. So I love where he took this, because I had no clue he was going to go that direction.
Well, I never know where he's going to go ever.
Yeah.
So, but I love the platform. So the platform, if taken by yourself, most people won't listen to you.
Right.
The platform has to be given. You have to give a reason for people to come and listen to you. Mm-hmm. And it's them giving themselves up to listen, where a lot of people, you got the sidewalk preachers. Is that what they're called? Is that what we call them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And where they're just screaming from a microphone, where they have deemed themselves a platform, therefore no one listens.
Yeah.
But if they were to be kind first, and talked about how much they loved the person that they're screaming at, rather than they're going to go to hell, there probably be a lot higher conversion rate. In that way of doing ministry. I
know very few people who became Christians who were beat into Christianity.
I know no one.
And so it's this whole thing of, that's not how it works.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at Jesus, he healed the blind.
Mm-hmm.
He raised people from the dead. He did these things of kindness for people.
Mm-hmm.
He fed the 5,000. But the moment he does those things, suddenly everybody wants to listen to him.
Yeah.
They want to hear what he has to say, because he showed kindness first.
And he always did it first, like feeding the 5,000. He didn't. I don't think he spoke first, did he? And then he fed him? I thought he fed him and then.
I think you might be right.
I don't know.
We might need to cut this part out of the video. So.
Dang it. But he always had kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time. Now, all those people came to see Jesus because of all the crazy things and how nice he was.
Yeah.
They're like, we got to see what this guy's about.
Yeah.
And he always returned with far more than just words.
Yeah.
Every time.
Even coming with my wife never really listened to a lot of Stephen Curtis Chapman songs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Truth be told, I robbed the cradle when I married my wife. She's 11 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a band or a musician that she really listened to a lot. Yeah. And so we go to the Stephen Curtis Chapman thing. Well, it's a meet and greet beforehand.
Yeah.
Which now, of course, Stephen Curtis and I are like...
You're best of friends.
Tight, dude. So tight. But no, we got a chance to talk to him. And my wife was so impressed with who he was and his kindness in talking to us.
Mm-hmm.
Because we actually got a few moments to really talk to him. And because he was so kind, that opened my wife up to listen to his music and buy into what he was selling.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize just how far that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Authentic kindness, not fake kindness, but authentic kindness is such a rare commodity these days.
Yeah.
And when you can get your hands on it, you don't want to let go of it.
I know.
You really don't.
I know. Now, kindness, I would like to say that it does also open yourself up to a lot of hurt. It's not this perfect world where it's like, oh, if you follow kindness, if you do it, and you share Jesus' name, your life will be perfect. Like,
Yeah.
No, like you are personally opening yourself up to a lot of things that you wouldn't open yourself up to if you never did anything. But the positive and the encouragement and the relationships and the community that you will receive from it will far outweigh anything that comes your way that's negative.
Well, we live in a world that people like to take advantage of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people come to churches and ask for money.
Yep.
Because, well, the church is kind, so the church should give me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the problem is I think you mentioned it earlier, we feel so entitled. We feel like we're owed something.
Yeah.
That we expect people to be kind to us without feeling like we have to reciprocate.
Yeah.
And so people all the time are just kind of expecting you. Well, you're a Christian. Hey, what are you doing for me?
Mm-hmm.
That's not really how that's supposed to work, but what do you need?
Yeah.
You know, and I have a feeling that there are probably people who may be listening to this podcast who have been taken advantage of with their kindness.
Yeah.
That they hear be kind, and it almost feels like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
Because all they think is every time I'm kind, people take advantage of it.
Yep.
People take me for granted, and I get treated like garbage in the process. And you know what? That's not abnormal.
Yeah.
I think there are so many of us who are kind or try to be kind, and that gets taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we have to make sure of, like with the story of Dave and the girl that came in asking for money, is we have to have discernment. That doesn't mean you're not kind to everybody. That means where does your kindness go? Like where do you direct the majority of your kindness? Because you can direct it in the wrong places, and it doesn't. One, it may not come off as kindness, and two, it may be completely ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
And so where does your kindness go?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? What do you think about the criticism that people draw when they're kind to people?
Yeah, you see it less and less now. I with the generation older than mine, so maybe just a little bit older than you, maybe around your age. Whenever you talk about people, like, why don't you come to church? It's like, well, church people just do me wrong all the time, which means that they had one bad experience and they don't want to experience it again. But people take advantage of it so much. And then they guard. It's just like a guarding of your heart in a negative way. You know, in the scripture it does say, guard your heart, because whatever's your heart's gonna flow out. And it's like they've taken it the opposite way, and they're like, well, I'm just gonna guard my heart from everything.
Oh yeah.
And kindness is just gonna have to suffer because I don't like the negative part of it. And the criticism that people get for being kind is almost like, are you fake?
Yeah.
Are you?
True story. When I first met Rachel Kibler,
yeah.
the senior minister's wife,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe anybody was that kind.
I
hope she hears this.
Yeah,
I've told her this. This is not something I haven't told her.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't like her.
Yeah.
Because she was so kind, and it's not possible to be that kind. But then as I got to know her, that's legitimately who she was.
Yep.
I fully admit that I was so skeptical because I'd met so many fake kind people that to meet somebody who truly was kind to the nth degree was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, even Dave told a story about his wife yesterday.
Oh, yeah, where she went over and
Yeah.
helped the lady with the 2 kids because her food was getting cold. So
saw a single mom.
Yeah.
2 kids, or it was either 1 or 2 kids sitting there.
Yeah.
And she's trying to hold a baby and feed a baby and eat her food, and it's obvious her food's going to get cold.
Yep.
So Rachel, Dave's wife, goes right over to the table, grabs the baby, and sits with the woman, and gives her an adult conversation.
Yep.
And she gets to eat hot food.
Yeah.
That's 2 things that single moms are longing for constantly, because most of their conversations are around goo-goos, gagas, and poopy and pee-pee.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not to sound gross, and I hope nobody's offended by that, but like that's your conversations
all the time
with little kids. And to be able to sit in a restaurant, eat a hot meal while somebody else makes sure your kid is okay, and you get to have an adult conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the biggest forms of kindness you can give to a single mom, and the fact she just did it out of the blue.
Yeah.
Nobody told her to. She just did it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of woman she is.
Yeah, and I love her for that.
I do
She's
too.
very kind. I've met some of the kindest people in the church that we're at now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say also myself, growing up, going to church later in life, I was guarded towards it too.
Mm-hmm.
I never had one negative experience with a church member before going to church. Like I if someone said, "What do you think about Christians?" I would have no opinion, probably. If I did, I was just talking out my butt. But looking back, I had no idea what Christians were about or anything. But Christians are the kindest people.
Yeah.
And to go against kind of what Dave said earlier about what you're doing is so loud. What you're doing is so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. But what was the phrase?
It's preach on all occasions, occasionally use words.
Occasionally use words. For me, it was the kindness of their actions is what drew me so close to wanting to be at church, because they were different and I wanted to be like them.
Well, and I think that's the whole thing about kindness, and that's why it's so important that adults understand when we show kindness in church to the younger generation, they want to emulate what the adults ahead of them are doing.
Yeah.
And if you're doing something that they see and they see the reaction of that receiving of kindness, which many times is excitement, happiness, tears,
yeah,
they want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I want that reaction from people. So as children, they're going to be kind,
mm-hmm.
because they see the parents being kind. They see the older Christians, the older people in their church they respect being kind. Being kind is what we should do regardless.
Yep.
But just that witness that it gives.
Yep.
Mind-blowing.
I know.
Mind-blowing. So, man, I think we pretty much talked about all of this.
Yeah, everything Dave talked about. I'm sure we could talk about stories upon stories about kindness.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
As long as we wanted to go.
And I won't be here next week.
No, I'm with.
Our string is over.
That's
this
true.
This is it.
But then we have another long string again. Well,
yeah,
just a couple weeks.
Just a couple weeks, and then you and I have our own series we're doing together in July.
July, yeah.
So that's going to be good.
That's going to be fun.
So Dave will be flip-flopping with us for the whole month.
Yeah, I know.
So that'll be different for him.
He does it by himself. He can just sit and
We'll
talk.
just give Dave the mic and say, go talk to the people.
He's not preaching, so he can just sit in the kitchen and preach and talk.
Now, there is one update. Because of Memorial Day coming up, next week's podcast will not be released until Friday.
Yeah.
Just because of timing with when we do the podcast and everything. Because of Memorial Day, our offices are closed. We want our staff to be with families, so it won't be on until Friday of next week.
Yep.
If you're listening online right now, you can subscribe through us through iTunes or Podbean. You can also go to the Google Play Store and search for us there for Catalyst Christian Church. And you can download our podcast there and be subscribed to that. Also, if you're on YouTube, just click on that subscribe button so you can get these updated into your feed. Click on that bell so you get the notifications of when these come out. And we just want you to be a part of what we're doing. If you have any comments about today, if you've got examples of kindness in your life that you want to share with us, I think we would love to see examples of kindness that have happened to you.
Absolutely.
So share those with us on the YouTube page. We'd love to hear those. But for myself and for Rob, this has been the Catalyst Midweek Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll be with you next week.